Welcome everyone back to another Nearpod video tutorial. And in this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to change the settings to optimize your Nearpod experience, as well as how to pull up reports. So let's get started. Now, you guys have all created your lesson by now, and some of you might have administered it. And for those of you who haven't, that's okay. But what we're going to do first is we're going to go to our little icon avatar here in the top right-hand corner, and we are going to click on this settings gear. There's a couple things that we want to make sure that that you know the difference between. That way you can see which ones best fit your need. And when you're in the settings, you don't have to do anything with this here. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the advanced button here, the advanced tab. And within that tab, there's a couple of hidden features that we want to play around with and fine tune for your experience. And here's what they are. Enable student notes. Students will be able to annotate their lessons and save or share those notes with others. I'm going to do another video specifically on that a little bit later. However, I always like to turn that on because it's an extremely powerful feature. So we'll get into that in a bit. The next one is show quiz results in student-paced mode. So if you did deliver your lesson in a student-paced mode, when they finish taking a quiz, do you want it to release those results right away or just give them their score? Something you're going to want to toggle with back and forth. If you don't want your students getting their scores right away because you don't want your first period students to tell the next class what the correct answers are or vice versa, then shut that feature off. So it all depends on what you want. The next one is allow students to resubmit answers. So if they get something wrong, or not if they get something wrong, but if they submit something and you as the teacher have not yet ended that particular activity, the students always have the feature to go back in and change their answers before you swipe to the next slide or stop that particular activity. So that's the resubmitting answers. And the next one and last one here is enable collaborate for student-paced lessons. So that online digital corkboard, that sticky note parking lot, when you're doing a student-paced lesson, students will not be able to access or do any of those activities, those collaborate ones, if that feature is not turned on. So make sure that it's turned on for student-paced, and that will take care of that. All right, so now that we've played around with those settings, let's go back to our library. And if I've run my if I've run my lesson and gone through my lesson, I should now have a report. And there's a couple different ways to kind of go through your report. So if you click on this three dots in the top right hand corner of your lesson, there's a couple different options and we're going to go through those. The first one is share. If I wanted to share a lesson with others, I can definitely do that by email. Let's say that the teacher across the hall really enjoyed the lesson that I created and they want a copy of it. I can add their email right here and check that box, and what that does is it gives them the ability to have their own editable copy. So they'll receive an email from Nearpod stating that I shared a lesson with them, and by clicking on the correct link, it'll actually make a copy and duplicate that lesson into their library. Otherwise, they would just be able to see it, and I don't want them to just see it. I want them to actually do something with it. And you can also share and embed and do all that good stuff here. However, that's the sharing lessons feature. The next one is, oops, didn't click. Duplicate. Let's say I wanted to maybe differentiate my instruction and maybe scaffold. I wanted to do the same lesson hitting the same teaks. However, I was just going to modify that one of those lessons for a different tier of my students in my classroom. I can duplicate the lesson with one click as opposed to recreating it. Add to. This is a really cool option. So within your school, you actually have your own school library that all your teachers that have a premium NEIST license can actually contribute to. So you have essentially your own library of lessons within your own school. Your district library, you guys have access to that as well, and you guys can dump lessons in, so that way anyone in the district can use your lessons. So you can always play around with those and throw lessons in there for your school or your district. And when you go to the Explore tab on the top left-hand corner, you can actually go through the Nearpod lesson library, the school library, or the district library. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper a little bit later. You can export your Nearpod presentation as a PDF. You can view reports, or you could delete it. Now, I did say we're going to go into reports. This is one way. The other way is up here. And the third and final way is, if you're at that little Skittles rainbow house, there's a tab called Reports. So either one of those three will take you to the Reports feature, no worries. And you can always go in there and take a look to see how many people have done your lesson, how many times that lesson was accessed, and all that good stuff. And as you can see here, I'm going to pull up one that I've done many times. That will be this one here. So I've done this lesson 5 times in the past couple weeks or so, or the past couple months. It'll tell me how many times that lesson was accessed or that specific code. If it has a house next to it, that means that was a student-paced lesson. The others are a live lesson. If I go into that, I can now see that I had 2 people participate. Here are my different reporting options based on the different categories. I had a poll question on there. Polls are not right or wrong. They're either you did do them or you did not. So it's either 100 or 0. Open-ended questions, same thing. They either contributed to it or they didn't for a 0. Quiz, that one's graded. These 2 ladies just happen to do horribly on that quiz. Draw it is the same as the other 2 participation ones. They either did it or they didn't. Matching pairs, it won't do anything, as well as collaborate. However, if I wanted to drill down and kind of get a item analysis, I can definitely do so. I can do that under the quiz. If I wanted to see my poll question and get a real quick snapshot of how the class did, I could do that. Open-ended, draw it, matching pairs. I can see all that stuff here based on the questions that I have in my particular lesson. Now, in addition to that, I can download these reports, and I can download them as spreadsheets or PDFs. If I do a session view, it gives me my overall view of basically of what I have here. If I do a CSV, same thing. It's the same type of report, but it's in a spreadsheet format. PDF, student view, this is where the magic happens. You can actually download a PDF for every single student, and it'll download its own individual PDF with their specific results. That way you can use that for parent-teacher conferences, grades, records, data for admin, all that good stuff. So it's all here. So that's the reporting feature. So we've gone over a couple different things. We've gone over changing those settings here and playing with those 4 different settings, as well as sharing and a little bit of how to share to that school district library, as well as with other colleagues. So play around with those features and get to know them, because they're really, really powerful tools that'll help you get the best out of your Nearpod license.